We'll look at Ben Healy's How Useful is Fear for some pointers on writing. Well, first, let's look at his title, and we can see that his title is pretty basic, but it's the main question that will be the guiding question for his entire essay. And you can do this as well. Present a question that your essay will answer. Let's look at his introduction. He starts his introduction with a quotation from a famous person. And we all know who Franklin Roosevelt is, so he doesn't have to announce who that is. But if you were quoting somebody who was famous in a particular field, but that most of your readers wouldn't know, you would have to give information about who that person is. In this case, obviously, you make your quotation connect to the main point of your essay, which his does. His whole essay is about fear, and he's quoting Roosevelt about fear. And even though most professional essays don't do this, or many don't, he puts his thesis at the end of that first paragraph, just as you will in your academic essays. But quoting is one way to introduce your essay. I want you to take a look at his conclusion now and look at the parts I've put in blue. You're noticing his conclusion that he refers back to the quotation in the introduction. He uses his own little take on it, but he's using some of the same wording. And by doing that, he's reminding readers of that quotation from the introduction. So he's making his essay cohesive. He's bringing it full circle. That's a really sophisticated way to conclude your essay. And you can do this with anything, with an anecdote, with an image. So just bringing up something in your conclusion that you had in your introduction is one way of concluding your essay. Let's talk about transitioning within paragraphs. The first thing I want to say is that no transition will solve the problem of your ideas not being connected. So the first issue is your ideas within your paragraphs have to be connected. So when you have those connections there, then you can help your reader to move smoothly from one idea to the next by using certain techniques. And I've put these some examples of this in blue. So you look at deep-seated aversions like these. Notice that the like these refer to the aversions that he was just talking about in the previous sentence. The snakes, spiders, and those kinds of things. So that pronoun these is one way of connecting this sentence to the previous one. Look at that sentence also. There's a colon after the word reality. That indicates to readers that an idea is going to come next that explains the sentence that came before the colon, and that's what it does. Then notice the next part in blue, such ancestral sensitivities. Ancestral sensitivities is referring to the arachnophobia, the spiders, and that sort of thing. And such is again referring back to that. So you see how he's using, in this case, pronouns and synonyms to connect ideas from one sentence to the next, and this helps the paragraph to be cohesive. Let's talk about his use of statistics. He uses quite a few statistics, and I'm just giving you one example here. But what I like about his use of statistics is he makes it accessible to readers. So in green here, he doesn't just present the statistic of 1,595 people were killed in car accidents the year after 9/11, and 246 people were killed during 9/11, but he explains that that's 6 times more than the number of passengers who died on the plane. So he's trying to he's explaining the importance of that figure. And let's look at the last sentence of that same paragraph. I put it in blue. This is an example of a good concluding sentence. A concluding sentence wraps up the paragraph, reinforcing its overall point. So, in a sense, it's another version of the paragraph's topic sentence. This paragraph doesn't happen to have a topic sentence, or I would say this concluding sentence is serving as the topic sentence. But in your papers, you'll start each paragraph with a topic sentence, and ideally, you should end it with a concluding sentence so that the information is sandwiched between those two sentences. So let's look at what we've talked about. You can use a question as your title, and your essay will obviously answer that question. You can use a famous quotation or a quotation from a famous person to introduce your essay, as long as it, of course, the quotation is relevant to your point. If you don't think that most readers will know who the person is that you're quoting, you need to indicate who that person is, what makes that person famous. Ideas within your paragraphs must be connected, and one way to show those connections are pronouns and synonyms. When you include statistics, comment on them. Don't let them speak for themselves. Make them accessible to your readers. And finally, a sophisticated way to conclude an essay is by referring to something from the introduction. This will bring the essay full circle.